Good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting me along this morning. I've been working in the area now for 40 years. I know I don't look old enough, but I'm still passionate about people and business, and I'm really thrilled that so much of our conversation today has been about people. So when I read about the crisis that Patisserie Valerie was in about 10 days ago, my first feeling was that of sadness. It was a name that I knew from my childhood in central London. I'm not much of a cake eater, but I did see that name, and it did seem to have survived the kind of cafe, the competitive cafe society that we live in our cities. But the reasons for the crisis are going to be uncovered. There is forensic investigation work going on, and so I'm not here to talk about what went wrong. What I wanted to put to you today was, what would you do if you were in Luke Johnson's shoes? And what would you do if you were going to try to take a company like Patisserie Valerie into survival? So my first thought was leadership. 4 or 5 days after the crisis was uncovered, Luke Johnson had spoken to the press. He'd given quite an in-depth interview to the Sunday Times, where he actually has had a column advising entrepreneurs on how to run their businesses for the last year or so. It's a pretty good column, actually. And you can imagine, it's not just his fortune that's hurt, it's his pride. But he had confronted it. He hadn't run away. He had said he'd probably taken his eye off the ball. He has got about 40 directorships. But by then, by a week later, he had raised investment to put a recovery plan in place and put 10 million of his own fortunes into the business as a loan. I'm not making judgment here, I'm just trying to take you through the path of what that might feel like. So he secured a rescue package that he believes that the company could survive and still deliver profit, albeit reduced. So now he's got to have his strategy, his recovery strategy. He's already said new financial management. He's already said we're putting an end to expansion. But whether or not he's going to prepare a company for sale, or prepare a company for survival, or prepare a company for consolidation, he's got to make that strategy clear. And a lot of you talked about the leader needing to make that strategy clear and communicating it for the future. But this is where I was disappointed with Luke Johnson, who, even to my cynical ears, I found his voice rather authentic in the last few days. He said he was going to be committed to protecting 2,800 jobs. It wasn't jobs that went into work to find that their premises were locked, the bailiffs had removed the ovens, the landlords had closed the doors. It wasn't jobs who were wondering if their financial director was going to go to jail. It was people with emotions, feelings, lives, families, rents to pay, and mortgages. It's committed and professional people that will make Patisserie Valerie a success story. Not just the leadership team, but the 1,000 or 1,500 or maybe 2,800, we doubt it, people that he'll need behind him. And I think we all need behind us. He's going to need people to make cakes, to smile at the customers, to rebuild the trust in a brand that has been there since the 60s. Looking for images for these slides this week, I found hundreds of pictures of Luke Johnson. I found very few pictures of Patisserie Valerie people at work, apart from on their recruitment site. And I was looking really hard. I nearly went into one and took a picture, but I thought that might be going a bit too far. I'm using Patisserie Valerie just as a kind of symbol of every business that we run. And I talked to Richard. I could have put Gareth Southgate in these slides, because I think there we have got a young 21st century manager who is showing all these qualities of long-term, inclusive, inspirational leadership. The vocabulary that we use about people in business in this country is pitiful. I have been in this forum and heard people being pretty patronising about people that work for them. Not today, when we've been challenged to think about ourselves as leadership, but in other forums, when we've talked about difficulties of HR, difficulties of flexible working, difficulties of managing the very people that we need to deliver our visions. Can we stop thinking about people as jobs, as resource, as FTEs, as cost centres? Can we start thinking about them as people and treating them like people? This has been what I've been working in for at least 20 of my last 40 years, and I'm going to continue to do that for the next 10. Thank you very much.